Welcome to today's episode where we are thrilled to have the incredible Sonja with us. Sonja, a true European at heart, leads with passion and an unwavering commitment to fostering change, both in the professional arena and beyond. With over a decade of experience spanning big corporates, the vibrant startup scene, and foundational work, Sonja embodies the essence of innovative leadership. Her approach, out of the box thinking and an open mind, tools that have not only fueled her curiosity but also enabled her to inspire and lead meaningful transformations. Sonja is deeply passionate about pioneering new models of work, empowering teams, and helping individuals unlock their true superpowers at work. As a seasoned transformation and project manager, Sonja's expertise isn't just limited to corporate clients. She also extends her hands on leadership and strategic insights to startups and scale ups, driving growth and fostering a culture of empowerment. But what truly sets Sonja apart is her eagerness to connect, learn, and co create. Whether you're looking to do business, discuss opportunities, or simply share insights, Sonja is always open to hearing from you. So let's get ready to dive deep into the world of leadership, innovation, and the power of finding your superpower at work with Sonja. Let's get started. Hi Sonja, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much. Humbled with this introduction. I think it's so nice. Thank you.
You're welcome, Sonja. The first question that comes to my mind is that when you hear the term future of work, what are some of the things that opens up to you? And a lot of things have shifted in the last 5 years. So, what are some of the things that come to you?
I think the future of work is really, it could be a personal definition. And when we look at it from my own perspective, I think the future of work is much more intertwined with life. It's not so much work life balance, but it's more like life design. And I think work is part of that future. And what I usually like to do is also not just like look into the future as per next week, in half a year, or in 1 year, but I think the future is also happening now. So I think when I look at the term future of work, I think it's a transformation. It's really a different way of thinking, and I think it's also a mindset where it's not so much about limitations, but it's more like, okay, what's possible? Because I think, especially from a talent perspective, there are still so many talent pools that have not been part of the traditional workforce. And I think for me, that is really the future of work, to look at work more intertwined in, okay, how does that fit into life? How does that fit into passions? How does it fit into my ambitions, but also the ambitions of someone else? And creating a more open space. I think that's my definition of the future of work.
Interesting, interesting. So, Sonja, with future of work, uh, it's also about, let's say, we are entering into a world of leadership where leadership doesn't have, where you cannot follow a singular style of leadership. It has to have so many layers to it. So, what are your observations on leadership and some of the leadership styles that you advocate?
Yeah. I think for myself speaking, I see a transformation. And I would also like to make a point where you have a difference in leading in person, and that could be like in the office, that could be sitting next to someone, that could be in a factory, that could be in different work settings. And on the other hand, like the remote working. And I think the remote working requires a different set of skills. And I think that is also where I took the opportunity the past 1.5 years, together with my team and Hadron Assistants, to really look into, okay, what is needed when we are transforming into a remote first company. And I think my own opinion is leadership from a remote perspective needs to be different from both sides. So on the one hand, the side of the leader, but also the recipient, which could be the team member, team lead, new joiner, someone offboarding, etc. Because I think when you look at leading and that in itself is a big question mark often. But I think, especially if you look into the discussion on should we do remote work, yes or no in the first place, I think it also transformed into another question where you're really looking into who is capable of being led in a remote setting. And why am I saying this? Because I think that also leads to different skills in leadership. Because I have my own people team, and on a daily basis, I don't see them in person. So literally, how that works, we're highly connected with different tools, and we use, for instance, Slack and email, calling, huddling, all different kinds. But from my side, that also requires a lot of trust, and I believe in the concept of courageous leadership. And what do I mean by that? I think it's for me, it's very much a position where you need to create that psychological safety in the first place and trust to be able to let go. Because I need to believe in the power and the talent of my team. I need to let go of a few things because I'm just not able to control everything. And on the other hand, I also don't want to. And I think for me, that is also the core of courageous leadership, where I say, I can be the best leader if I make sure that I see the talent in people, that I nurture talent, and that I also provide stage opportunity. And what do I mean by stage opportunity? I think it should always start from a safe setting, that you say, okay, I set the boundaries. I know someone is in a safe space. But then it's my job as a leader to say, I know you might not be there yet, but I know you can do it. And by that, for instance, if I'm approached by my network to do a podcast, and someone would like to talk to me, to immediately also think about, should I be the person doing this? Or is someone in my team more capable of doing this? By having the guidance of myself and putting them in a spot where, on the one hand, yes, they are in a safe space because I'm joining, or I will be prepping, etc. And I will not say yes to something that is an unsafe situation, but still, I really believe in the concept of learning outside of your comfort zone. And that is also where the courageousness taps in, and where, yes, I need to show courage because it's something I've never done before.
So Sanja, hope in planning this podcast, I was able to create some safe space for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. Maybe just one little remark on this one, because I think what you did was remarkable, was really nice, because maybe nice also for the audience to know. Before we had a prep session, and I was saying, yes, I'm really looking forward towards the podcast, and then the remark was, it's not a podcast, it's a live session, and you also have a video, and we have a visual. So this is also for myself, being put in a different and new situation, but in a very safe setting, and also with the full preparation, the questions, the setting you're creating. I feel at ease. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Sonja. I was just joking, but thank you. I appreciate you thinking so much. So now just a very, very important point: creating safe atmosphere, and that too, in the remote setup, it's a challenge. Both, let's say, for leadership. Okay, what are the new things, or what are the, what activities or what strategy should we take it to create that environment? And on the other hand, employees, are they really getting the value that we are trying to create? So what are your thoughts here? First, of course, for the leadership and team who really want to do that, so what are some of the steps or suggestions you have for them? And then for employees on how they can create a safe environment.
Yeah. I think for me, 2 points are most important. I think one is basic: do what you say. So be very clear in what's your ambition, how are you role modeling? How are you, like what you're asking your team to do? How are you doing that yourself? So, for instance, if we say we don't want to micromanage ourselves, don't. Just give your team that space. I think that's a really important one. I think the second one is also clarity. And that could also be an act fast. If you make a decision, don't sugarcoat it. Have your storyline set up. Yes, so you do need a communications plan, but also be fast in communicating that to the right stakeholders, because I think that is also something in a remote setting. You're not walking together to the coffee machine with someone. You cannot feel that tension in between, right? Or you cannot pick up someone from the staircase. And I think that is very important. So as soon as you have the feeling something is building up, we need to communicate, do that. And then you are in the power of having that communication sent yourself. And sometimes even tap in afterwards with your team on an individual base. So create that time to open up for questions. They might not be comfortable with asking in a big group setting.
Yeah, yeah. So, Sonja, a team is there in an organization, and of course, they collaborate. They have to. There are deliverables, there are KPIs, and they have to make work happen, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of other activities and other aspects of their life, let's say, let's say, could be troubling them. We recently we came out of pandemic. It could be some of their concerns with their, maybe, within their relationships. Okay, or it could be, they might be experiencing some other challenges. So how important it is for the leadership and team, to to track those, and rather find solutions for them, because ultimately, we are the result of the other experiences that we gain, and we
Yeah.
take back to the work, and we perform, and then again we go back to, let's say, our personal life. So what are your thoughts? And if you see some good things happening there, feel free to share that.
Yeah, I think it relates back to what I said. I think the future of work and also where we're in now, it's much more how is that embedded into the life of someone, and especially in a like in a company where the team, or like the person as such, is also the product and also delivers the service. I think the happiness of yourself is always at the top and should be a priority. Being said that, I think it's also important to be able to be hard on content and soft on the person, because I think it should always be the leadership's eye to see, okay, what's happening and how is someone in their comfort zone, yes or no. How can I be of help in that and that? And I always say to my team, for instance, I had some situations today where life happens in between, and then you have
Yeah,
a deadline, and you need to have a prior straight, and you also need to deliver. But something happens, maybe in the private sector, and then I think it's very important for leadership to be present, and also to have an environment where people know, okay, how can I reach someone? How fast should I reach someone? And then also sometimes from a leadership perspective to step in and say, hey, I'm here, I will cover your back, you're fine. And by doing that rather quickly, and also trying to create that in a team setting where you say, okay, maybe that colleague is not top performer on that area, but that person might have a view on that, or can jump in for half a day or a day. I think that that level of not having a boundary and opening up for that, I think that is crucial in the success of high performance teams. Like that trust, and not just trust from the leadership into the team, but also in the team as such. So literally that you create a setting where you can also open up and you can say, okay, I might need your help. And I don't know what exactly you can help with, but maybe you do. And I think that is a pretty big task of the leadership and leaders to do and
yeah,
facilitate.
So, Sandhya, what was a pivotal moment in your career
Yeah,
that drove you
yeah,
towards focusing on, new models of work and team empowerment?
yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting because in my different functions in corporate setting, but also in startup world, I think there was one moment where I had been in a European team on in the corporate setting. I had worked remote already before COVID. We were all located in different locations in Europe, and working from home, having your laptop was the usual thing to do. But I think one moment in the pandemic was really when I moved into a management team where we were responsible for all the hiring and rehiring all management and employees for the headquarters. And where from a remote setting, we also had to onboard a few managers that had not been with the organization before. And for myself, experiencing a younger colleague as my direct manager and excelling at putting us together as a management team. She was so strong in providing us our purpose in saying, okay, hey, it was all women, so like and a management team fully by women, but hey, hey girls, kind of let's this is our step at the horizon. This is where I want to take you, and I need you, and I need you as my team. I need you as my leaders. I need you to sometimes front run. I cannot do this by myself because it was a rather big goal we needed to succeed in. And I think for me, that moment was really realizing that, yes, we are all in it together. If you, as a leader, you excel and you can succeed in making sure everyone knows that step at the horizon. Where are we going to? What are we doing? That I think then you can really tap into the individual happiness of everyone, looking into, okay, why am I here? Why is my talent needed? And also making sure that everyone is visible in their team.
Interesting, interesting.
Yeah,
Uh, Sandhya, what are some of the differences? Let's say when we talk about leadership styles, what
yeah.
according to you, in corporate setup, because of your vast experience in corporate startups and the foundational work that you do, which styles suits best? I think we discussed courageous leadership, but
Yeah.
it would be great if you could elaborate and share with the viewers who could be from any of the spectrum. It would be wonderful to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from my own perspective, I have been in the lucky position that I had a lot of inspiring mentors and leaders myself. And that was in the corporate setting, but that was also in the startup and scale up setting. I think the main differences you can see, and I also experienced, is on the on the one hand, very much the I need to control you, I need to stand behind you, look into your laptop, tell me that email you're writing, who is that to? Looking into, okay, what time is it? Ooh, it's 5:30. You're leaving. Are you working part time? Very extreme. And on the other hand, having leaders that said, in 3 weeks, this is what I would like to see. Good luck, and just like free flowing, and kind of saying, I have your back. You can tap in whenever you need to, but just letting it go, and focusing much more on the result, and not so much on, okay, what do you do on an hourly base? What do you do per minute?
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, personally speaking, I flourish much more with a freedom style, and I think as soon as someone is starting to look over my shoulder, micromanaging me, it feels like, okay, why did you hire me? Because I should be able to do the job. But I think it's also critical to really know the setting. So because leadership in a bigger corporate is also much more political. So it's like, okay, we need to consider those stakeholders. We need to consider that department. We need to consider the business goal that is our goal for in 5 years. And also taking into consideration the action times. Whereas in a startup scale up setting, it is that you can excel even more when you get the freedom, and you also have the back. So it's like, okay, I have a nice idea. I would like to implement something, or I would like to hire someone, and you have a go. And I think that is something, the pace, the buy-in, that and also the one-on-one talk, for instance, with the CEO and the head of people, that I find very crucial, and it's also very specific in scale up and startup setting, where ways are, yeah, just much shorter, and also the mindset is different, because business priorities can be more short term, and you also need to act on them pretty fast.
Yeah. Sonja, where do you see the future of responsibilities such as head of people going globally, both in terms of remote, let's say remote ways of working, and traditional ways of working? Where do you see this going?
I think when you look into the head of people function, or the people function as such, I think it's we are really going into a more business direction. How can we make sure we are solving business questions? How can we really be the sparring partner of the CEO, or the founder, or the board of directors? I think that is a step you see more often, and I think it's also pretty nice to have a seat at the table. I think the people leads can, and including myself, can even step up in that, and say, hey, I got the knowledge, or I want to have a say at the table. And I think also when you look into a lot of companies that have people, or like a service as a product, still the teams as such are making the difference. So I think there's quite some talent, and also quite some opportunities we can still leverage. And I think it's another thing that what I really like at the moment, and I also think it's a trend, is like the close cooperation with the financial leads. So CFO, CHRO. How are you looking at the team, for instance, or workforce planning, workforce optimization, productivity things, from a perspective where you say, okay, we, on the one hand, we have a commercial goal at mind, but we do it in a human way, and we're making sure that we're really looking at it from a people perspective, and then by that, taking our financial leads on board and saying, okay, how are we going to do that, being smart on a commercial side, but still making sure we're promoting the right talent, we're finding the right talent, paying benchmark, paying good salaries, etc.
And how easy or difficult it is to find the right talent in this world where there are so many fantastic people out here. So how does that process work for you?
Yeah. I think what is at the core of it is really knowing your own business problem. What are you solving? What kind of skills are you looking for? And by that, matching that to what you can offer. Because I think there has been quite a big discussion on remote, yes, no, hybrid, going back to the office. And I think especially when we look into the market where I'm currently at, we see that being remote offers lots of opportunities.
Yeah.
What I said, and you're tapping into different talent pools that might not have been visible before. So I think that is a huge opportunity, and I don't think I think we just started as a company, but also the rest of the commercial setting. I think we just started tapping into these talent pools, and I think there's lots more opportunities. And I think as soon as you make that switch, you also see that it's no longer that you have a shortage, but you're like, people are actually waiting in line. And then sometimes I make a little bit of a joke, but I say to my talent acquisition specialist, she is almost like a bouncer. She needs to make sure the right person is entering the club. And how do you do that when you have a waiting line and when you have people asking to join? How do you make sure you have the right assessment? How do you make sure you keep up with, okay, this is what we needed last week, but maybe we might need something else in 2 weeks? How do you make sure you stay on top of that game?
Interesting. So what strategies you employ to keep an open mind and stay
Yeah.
curious in this, ever evolving professional workspace?
I think I want to take that back again to really me myself, because yeah, I think resilience and knowing yourself is at the core of it. So what do I need? Because in a stressful situation and just like everything is piling up and I have lots of to-dos, my creativity also goes down. But what I have learned, and I think it's also something maybe as a tip, really make sure like what do you say yes to? So really timekeeping during your day, what kind of activities are you doing that are energy giving? And looking at it from a broader perspective, what do you need from like energy sources during the year? Because, for instance, what I do, I usually have a year plan, and once a year, my mom and myself we just go away, the two of us. And that is holy. That is 4 days. We're not disturbed by kids, partners, family, friends, work. No, we're just offline. And by doing that, and sorry, and really focusing on okay, what is needed at that moment. Sometimes it's even that we say like in such a long weekend, I need something new. I last time I tried out feet up yoga, so literally standing on top of my hat and seeing the world from a different perspective. And I think that is really also something what I try to embody in my daily life. Being on the bike, looking around, sometimes just asking not a stranger, but someone I might meet at school, in the supermarket, at a workshop. Last week I was at an HR dinner, just asking the question, hey, what drives you? What are you doing? And for me, that really works in sparkling the, whoa, I heard this. Ooh, that sounds interesting. And keeping that open mind. And most important also for myself speaking is really keeping up with that learner mindset. Even though I'm in a senior position, I never say I stop learning, because for me that would be not the end of my career, but almost. Because I still learn and I really enjoy that. Like also when, for instance, when I talk to younger colleagues or when I talk to new joiners, I'm really curious about their perspective or what they've done or how they look into a process, to learn on okay, how can we build and collaborate on smarter ways of working.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Sonja, for sharing that. Again, it is very important to keep eyes and ears open and embrace
Yeah.
new things, new learnings, and I think that's a very, very, very important quality or one must have. So thank you, Sonja, for sharing that. So, Sonja, what are your superpowers, and how do you help folks around you, who seek to identify their superpowers? Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, difficult question. No, but no, but I think what I the feedback I get, I think it's I'm curious. I try to have the honest conversation. So
Yeah.
sometimes really, okay, like really look through, okay, what's the story? Okay, what's your real story? Like and seeing that rather quickly. That also when because I think in a remote setting it's also pretty important to have a bit of a sense of okay, how's it going, how is someone, how did you get up, what's your energy level today, to jump onto that, because I think in a lead function that is crucial. And I think that's something I'm good at. And what I also think is like usually I have the commercial goal plus the people side in mind. So yes, I can be soft, yes, but I can also be hard on content, and providing that clarity. And I think that is something that yeah, people said they also appreciate, because I think that's also a bit the way where the people leads are going into having that soft side and empathy. Yes, that's at the core of it, but also being able to have that honest conversation and providing clarity.
So just what are some of the steps I can do to, let's
Yeah.
say, introspect on my superpowers?
I think it's sometimes it's pretty easy. You're just like, okay, who are the 5 people in your life that know you the best? Asking them, how did they perceive you? How did you make an impact? What kind of situation was that, and how did they perceive that? I think that could be the first question. I think then it's also checking in with yourself. Um, how if I have done something in a certain way, how do I feel about it? Am I fully energized? How do I come across? How do I sometimes also differ from someone else? And then it could also be traditional models of looking into, okay, what's my talent, where's my skills gap, etc. But I believe more into what was that situation where you looked into the mirror and said, whoa, that was just like awesome. I loved what I just did, and I love the feeling that it created.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so important. That's so important because sometimes, Sonja, I wonder. There are a lot of amazing people I know. They, when the time comes, they have not reflected on the evidence. And what you just
Yeah,
shared, makes me think that, okay, if someone just reflects or writes down the evidences of the work that they have done, it could be either professional or person, so that can really help them, help that quality come up more often.
yeah.
Otherwise, our minds are like this. If we give 20 hours to something, it will just focus on that. So this is something that came to my mind when you shared that, Sonja. Thank you for sharing that. So how do you approach change management, especially in scenarios where the organizations or teams, they resist to change? So what are your thoughts there?
I think I would always start with a bit of a discovery. What's our baseline? Where are we starting? Um, who is in? Who's not? Who's supporting it? Who is going against it? Literally doing an analysis, talking to people. I think that's a very important one. Why are you resisting that change? Why are you afraid of it? I think that's really important. But then also looking into it from a communications perspective. So, and there again, considering, okay, what kind of setting am I in? If I'm in the corporate setting and I also have some employee interest groups I need to involve. How do I do that? How is that approached also with different departments, for instance, in close alignment with communications and employee relations? And I think it's also being able in a management team to sometimes make tough choices, because if you are really behind a big change and transformation and you believe in that, that can also require really checking in. Okay, do we ourselves have the right skills to do this, and or do we need to attract an expert to help us guide in this process? And also, if you look at it from a people perspective, are we there yet, or do we need to train our team? What kind of opportunities do we need to provide to reach to that new level? And also having the conversation. Sometimes in big changes and transformations, you also need tough conversations and honest conversations. Is everyone on board? And does everyone want to join? Because it could also be a fair and honest conversation that someone says, I don't believe in this, or I've outgrown the organization. I have my interest somewhere else. So I think that's sometimes neglected, or it's more like, okay, everyone needs to go in the same direction, where I believe in an approach that is much more customized, where you're not losing your goal of, okay, this is our ambition, this is where we want to go, but doing that very honest, and also saying like, yeah, okay, like going somewhere also sometimes requires saying goodbye, or saying, yes, we are going in that direction and someone else is going in a different direction. And then most important, making sure that the people who want to front run but might not have the skills yet to empower them. How can you help those people in your team that are really like, yeah, putting up their hands? I'm excited, but I just don't know how. How do you take them along? And what's needed for them to really own that feeling of, whoa, I'm excited, and whoa, okay, this is scary because I've never done it before, but I'm part of the deal. I want to join.
Interesting. Thank you, Sonja, for sharing that. And can you share your insights on the role of emotional intelligence in leadership and team building?
Hmm. You're going for the tough question. Yeah, I think it's leadership. I
Sometimes,
often,
Sonja,
yeah,
sometimes I just feel that the words, terms like emotional intelligence, or
yeah,
I mean, we are using measuring several times of intelligence. Sometimes I wonder, you know, uh, usually we are to be in a family setup or to manage successful family relationships, or you're having a very good, let's say, relationships even with our friends. We are just being ourselves, and we are emotionally intelligent. That's why we have been able to handle and manage those relationships. And why
yeah,
suddenly it becomes different in an organization? So maybe you could share that, and of course,
yeah,
you're followed by your perspective.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like the comparison you just made because I think that is also linked to the future of work, where maybe like from my own background, I grew up in Germany, where there was a big separation between work and private life. And I started my professional career in the Netherlands, where you're bringing yourself to work. That is kind of the base. And I think that is a very nice link. And I think that's also where the power lies. That only if you can be yourself, if you have a safe setting, if you have support, if you know someone is having your back, etc., I think then you can also show that emotional intelligence, and you're not disturbed or like distracted by other things. And I think it's especially if you're running a people team, and the talent itself is making a big difference in your company. I think the emotional intelligence is highly needed, but I think it literally starts with having that discussion of how visible is that to you? How easy can you look through? If someone is saying something, can you understand that sometimes he or she is meaning the complete opposite? How can you create that Fingerspitzengefühl? That is very German, but how can you help leadership teams in being aware of it, that it exists, being aware of the superpower you can have if you understand it? And I think really looking into mastering the skill and using that in the one-on-one discussions you're having or in innovation processes you're running. I think that we still have a way to go on that one, but I think it's a very important one. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Sonja, for sharing that. And also, in terms of, let's say, career development, what key skills do you believe professionals can focus in today's work environment?
I think this is something that it doesn't matter so much the industry you're in, but taking ownership, especially in a remote setting, taking ownership of your own career and your own development, because I always think it starts with yourself. So being very reflected on, okay, what am I good at? What are my skills I want to develop, and starting developing that yourself. And if you don't know how, reach out to your network, reach out to someone that might know, and sometimes step over a boundary you're feeling yourself. And ooh, okay, that is exciting. I've never done it before, but maybe maybe my neighbor has done it. I don't know. Um, so I think proactiveness, ownership, I think that is a very important one, because at the end of the day, it's your life. And you can have a brilliant mentor, you can have a brilliant team, but in the end, you are responsible for your own success. So I think that's an important one. And the last one, I think, is the curiosity. Never stop being curious, and try to find those things that spark your own interest.
Yeah, yeah. Sondra, it would be wonderful to know a success story that is always, close to your heart, where you experienced, be it an individual or a team, where they, achieved unexpected positive outcomes. So anything that you can share?
Yeah, I think maybe two examples because when I was still in a corporate setting, we were doing a discovery. We were really looking into, okay, how are we doing inter-services in different European brands, and it was a huge project. It was something we did with a team of five, and on a bi-weekly base, we would fly somewhere. And like in the beginning, we're like, "Oh my God, this is huge! How are we going to divide this?" And I think by working very closely together and aligning as a team and looking into, okay, what's your power? And for instance, my task was literally the being the connector, making sure that in inside the organization, outside of the organization, cross border, making sure that we're speaking the same language, making sure that everyone was very much aware of their own talent and ways of working, and also what worked for the team and what didn't. I think in a rather short period of time, we were able to do a discovery and analysis and also provide a business savvy action plan. So I think that was one, and then I think the second example is from where I'm currently at Headroom Assistance. That last year we had a year of transformation, where we really looked into, okay, how are we doing work? What ways are we taking into the future? And also looking into, okay, how are we doing that as a team? And how can we work smarter, and by that be more efficient, and also really looking into the service level we are providing. And in that one, I think we were very good in identifying internal talent, making sure that the internal movements and the internal promotions up were done in the right place. We did quite some coaching, especially I didn't do that myself, but my colleagues did that. And I think there we really excelled into making sure that we're having the right conversation, making sure the right people are staying on board. And we also said goodbye to some others. And by that, really leveraging the productivity and smart working in our way. And I'm super proud of that, what the team delivered. You're mute.
What are some of the myths uh, on leadership styles, which people don't talk of, or maybe some of the blind spots that you notice, but I think it's nowhere there. It's no one speaks about it. Would you like to address some of those?
I think sometimes people speak about it, but it's also top sport. You are like, people expect everything from you, and at the end of the day, you're also human. So I think that is sometimes talked about, but it's often also expected. But I think the self-care of a good leader, that is very important. Making sure that, yes, you are resilient. Yes, you're making sure people know your boundaries, and also to say no. No, I think that's an important one. I think next to that is also the humor side. I think, yeah, especially in the Netherlands and in Europe, I also feel precious that I am in this situation, but I think work can also be fun. So sometimes having a good laugh at the end of the day or the beginning of the day is also very important, and also lightens up sometimes serious conversations you're having. Yeah, and I think the your network is your net worth. I think
Mhm.
that's also one that sometimes it's so obvious, but how can you, as a leader, how can you leverage that, and how can you reach out to others and mentor and say, "Hey, yes, I build up a network and I put quite some effort in it." But if you meet someone new, or like someone who doesn't have access yet, how can you help? How can you reach out?
Mhm. One of the challenge that I see, I think definitely, thank you for sharing that. It it came to my mind that a lot of leaders sometimes don't ask for help.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are your thoughts there? It's sometimes I see a lot of folks in the leadership positions. They are so let's say the nature of their role is about, let's say, giving, empowering, but some even they need the right kind of empowerment, or for that matter, right kind of support. So it would be great to hear your thoughts, your perspectives
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Yeah, and I also recognize that. I think it's with myself that it's not the first question I'm asking. Hey, please
Yeah, yeah,
help. But I think it is important because the other day I was at an HR dinner, and there was a question, and I just like yeah, raised my hand and I said yes, I know the answer, and I looked around and there were like 5 people out of 90 or something that knew the answer, and I'm like, whoa, okay, the air is getting a bit thinner once you have more seniority, and when you're going into a leadership position. So also the expectations go up. But I think where the magic happens is when you say, okay, yes, I am going into that top or in that direction, but I'm still reaching out. I'm still saying, hey, I don't know. Maybe someone else knows. And I don't know that person who knows, but maybe you know. And I think that's also, again, where the network comes in. And also sometimes, for instance, my own example was when I made a step from the corporate setting into the startup scale up world. I was used to having huge HR teams, 200 people, 500 people, all on the same business background as I was. And so as soon as you're going into startup scale up world, and you're doing like your own function, you're a solo function, you're the expert in the organization. I think that's also very important to tap in then yourself. And for instance, joining the running remote community, looking for these communities where you can
yeah.
learn, where you can ask a question, and where you're like, okay, we're trying to implement this policy, but I just don't know. Maybe someone else has done it before. So I think that's really important.
Thank you, Sunja. I heard you have you have chosen the word resilient
Yeah,
quite often in this conversation, and I think that's a very important skill, especially post pandemic, because I think
yeah.
that was, let's say, the learning curve. It actually made most of us resilient on a lot of aspects. But then, when it comes to professional context, how does one develop that aspect, that quality of being resilient?
I think it's knowing your blind spots. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's again reflecting on yourself. What has been a day where you're not even looking in the mirror, but you just know I'm drawn. Like all the energy is just like
Yeah,
gone. I'm
yeah,
empty. I think that is very important. Um, Trying to create that safe space for yourself. Hey, I have my boundaries also. Um, my own practice, like the other day, someone I know, she was looking at me and she was like, how do you manage your time? You have like so many different jobs. You're your mom, you're like active. How do you do that? And I literally said, I also say no quite some often times. I am I also I know very much about, okay, what do I say yes to? And for instance, on Tuesday nights I meet my girlfriends for a round of padel, and that is gold. That is just like how I can get rid of steam, how I can go through my week. And I think that self-awareness on, okay, what is leaking my energy, and
mm-hmm.
trying to immediately stop that if you have the power to do so. And on the other side, also really looking into, okay, what are my energy givers, and how can I, yeah, how can I create that power for myself, to be in the right spot, and also in a work setting, creating that safe environment where I can also speak up if hey, this is too much. I now need to focus a day,
Yeah.
or I need to take a step back, etc.
So, Sonja, when we talk about remote work, there are people from different cultures. They collaborate, be it in the same region or same continent, but it could be across the globe. What are some of the top pointers for folks who are, in whichever part of the world they are watching this? Okay, how do one create that authentic, let's say, relationships, professional
Yeah.
relationships with people. So what are your thoughts there?
I think there are huge differences, and always start with there are differences, and trying to find out what, and be curious about it. Like, and then on the other hand, also looking into, okay, if you're working on a network, or if you, what are the similarities? What is giving you energy? I heard you talk about a super nice festival. Tell me about it. Why? What do you like about it? And really trying to have that conversation where you show curiosity, where you show like, hey, I'm interested in meeting you, and also learn about different things. It could be celebrations, it could be ways of working, it could be how you say something, it could be the maybe in Sweden, where you're like, okay, what's a maybe? I'm used to yes or no. Like, what do you mean? And sometimes asking that extra question, I think that that can already bring you pretty far.
Wow, wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And what are some of your top tips for professionals looking to reinvent themselves or pivot their careers in the context of new work models?
Ooh. Uh, no, I think it's for me, it would really start with the why. Why is there a need to reinvent yourself? What are you missing? What are you missing out on? And what would you like to be part of? I think that is a really important one. Then I think start looking for networks like running remote, like some other professional networks where people have done this before. So quite often you're not the first one to do this. And then start by, I think LinkedIn is also a very good tool in this one. Start by looking into some profiles you're excited about, or start asking in your network, do you know someone who has done this before? And then by reaching out and showing true interest and saying like, hey, I see your profile, I'm actually interested in making that same move. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And then I think it starts by that, finding out why, and really making sure, okay, who could be of help, opening your eyes and saying, okay, I might not be the first one doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's how I would
yeah,
approach it.
yeah. That's why, Sonja, I host this podcast because
Yeah,
I feel this is best way to really, really connect, really, really exchange meaningful conversations, and really, like, how in let's say in a physical setup you can meet and have a conversation.
yeah,
I mean, so I can completely understand when you share this. I'm just trying to use what is available in terms of
yeah,
resources, be it LinkedIn, StreamYard, everything. So yeah, thank you for sharing,
yeah.
and of course the running community that you mentioned. It's a wonderful platform as well. Great. So finally, Sanja, what message would you like to leave for our listeners about cultivating mindset, geared towards continuous personal and professional development?
Yeah. What I would like to, it's more like a question mark on closing off today, the podcast. Really, I would like to invite everyone to ask themselves the question: are you happy in the spot where you are? And what if not? What's missing? Really making yourself important at the end of the day. Like, why? What is your talent you can contribute? What is something you can foster? And who would be that first person you're reaching out to ask for help? Yeah, I think those questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Sonja, for giving your valuable time and sharing your perspectives on courageous leadership, sharing insights on some of the skills we must focus the future the professionals who are living in this future of work must focus at, and also your closing comments on why it is important to have right community or create a safe environment around you, or rather you can also be the creator of the safe environment. So this is a good message that I learned in this conversation. And thank you once again, Sonja. And thank you, viewers, for joining us for yet another conversation. And I promise that I'll continue to build this and get fantastic folks like Sonja to share their perspectives and their story, and create a safe and secure environment in whatever little way I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much.